Hi there, I'm Bruce Stedman, a Solar System Ambassador volunteer with NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I'm standing here making sure that the moon and the stars are still around me. This program is for the Mooresville Public Library with Tales and Tales. You know, tales like animals and tales like stories. And as I said, I'm standing here with the night sky around me with the moon and the stars as would be seen 1,000 years ago. If this was today at night in my Mooresville neighborhood with all the street lights and lights from the surrounding homes, I'd be lucky to see a handful of stars. Now, we know how important things like food, water, weather, and travel are to us, planning our daily life. Today, it's as simple as going to the grocery store for food, turning on the kitchen faucet for water, checking the weather on our phone or TV, to looking at a GPS on our phone. Thousands of years ago, food production was a major concern, knowing when to plant and even when to harvest. What we call an everyday calendar today helps with understanding when the last frost is usually seen in the Mooresville area for planting. Well, academics that lived thousands of years ago studied the night sky because they knew the motion of the stars, the moon, and the sun repeated every year. That helped with their daily lives using those changes just like a calendar is to us. Well, stars are just dots in the night sky. To make sense of these dots, the sky was cut into sections, sort of like a jigsaw puzzle as shown here. Then, in each section, lines were drawn between certain stars to help in drawing a person, animal, object, or mythological creature was added to the stars. Stories were made up to help understand where these stars were located, as this was not only for education, but also for entertainment. Few could read or write, so visual memorization was important. Before 1922, there were 48 recognized constellations. In 1922, it was determined that a total of 88 sections of the night sky with 88 constellations would make a better system. This video will look at some of those constellations and stories that go with them. We need to remember that the space science knowledge of stars of that day was limited with fantastic, unbelievable mythological stories created to help answer what they didn't know. They had to use imagination and memorize, as these were taught verbally to pass down from parent to child. The fact that people believe these stories to be true is just as fantastic. It's important to know that mythology is not real. It's like a story like the mythological god Thor creating thunder and lightning because people didn't understand the science behind storms. Even now, our space knowledge has changed greatly in just the past 100 years. As an example, before 1924, it was believed there was only one galaxy called the Milky Way, when Edwin Hubble discovered that the Andromeda spiral was actually another galaxy. And so then there were two galaxies. Today, it is estimated that there are hundreds of billions of galaxies in our universe. Let's start our stories with the first stop looking to the northern night sky in July. Pretend I'm the storyteller, having met me in a field to study the constellations and stars that make them up. Think of me as an expert that doesn't know what's going on with the stars, as I was taught by a scientist of that day that also didn't know. Imagine, it's completely dark except for starlight. I've circled some stars you might recognize. Yes, these are the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. The Big Dipper is called an asterism, which is sort of a group of stars, part of a constellation that sort of looks like something we recognize. And in this case, it's a pan. Our constellations are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. Illustrations were added around the star group to make the constellations more real. And notice, the bears have long tails. Bears don't have long tails, so the mythological story was made up. There are many different stories behind each constellation. The one I'll use today is from the Greek mythology. It goes like this. Hera, the wife of Zeus, the king of gods, turned the beautiful woman Callisto, who she didn't like, into a bear. Her son Acus was turned into a bear by Zeus. To protect them, Zeus grabbed them by their stubby tails, throwing them into the sky, stretching their tails. This makes for a great story, easy to remember and important, as the first star in the handle of the Little Dipper is Polaris, the North Star. The North Star is always in the same position with the other stars traveling around it. This knowledge was used when traveling, especially at night. I have my assistant Cullen wearing a representation of a magnetic compass. You can see where north, south, east, and west are located. Knowing where the North Star Polaris is located can help and be used to turn ourselves into a human compass. So Cullen, I want you to turn around and look at Polaris. Now, hold your left arm out to your side. It points to the west. And now, Cullen, hold your right arm out to your side. It points east. And directly behind you is south. So Cullen, turn around. So how neat is that? Now we have direction to find our way to our destination. This turned out to be extremely important when traveling on the water at night, when land was not visible, as reliable magnetic compasses were not common or even invented. While we're right here, let's look at the constellation Draco. Draco is a popular constellation that's easy to find because it wraps itself around the little bear, Ursa Minor. Draco represents dragons that were very popular in Greek and Roman mythology. Many stage plays, movies, and television shows have dragons based on that mythology. In one story, Draco might have been inspired by the ancient Greek mythology of Ladon, who guarded golden apples. In that story, Hercules, a constellation next to Draco, on one of his jobs that was given to him, called a labor, killed Ladon and stole 3 golden apples. And with Hercules, we also have the mythological story with the zodiac constellation Leo. Leo has been around for a long time, being one of the original 48. It was even pictured with the Babylonian zodiac, describing the summer solstice many thousands of years ago. The zodiac is a group of 12 constellations that pass between the Earth and the Sun during the year. Leo was described by the astronomer Ptolemy, who lived almost 2,000 years ago and remains one of the 88 modern constellations. Leo is easily recognizable due to its many bright stars and shape that resembles a crouching lion. The lion's mane of fur around its head, face, and shoulders forms an asterism known as the sickle, which is a type of curved blade used for cutting that looks sort of like a backwards question mark. In one story of Greek mythology, Leo was identified as the Nemean lion. Leo was a very dangerous lion that would kidnap women and put them in his cave. Leo's fur was special and could not be penetrated by any clubs, swords, or spears that warriors would use, and Leo would always win the battle. Now, we have the powerful Hercules, and he was given 12 labors, which are like jobs to us, by the king of Mycenae for 10 years. Well, the one with Draco was his 11th labor, while his first labor was to destroy Leo the lion and save the kidnapped women. Hercules knew that he had to defeat the lion with only his bare hands. So he quietly entered the lion's cave, and Leo saw Hercules and pounced, leaping high into the air. Hercules, using his hands, caught and strangled Leo to death, saving and freeing the trapped women. Zeus celebrated this labor of Hercules by placing Leo Lion in the Sky. If you are with me studying the night sky, this is one story you would certainly remember. Nearby is a special group of constellations that were used in two movies called Clash of the Titans. Here are our cast of mythological characters in the northeast sky in September. The Queen of Cassiopeia, her husband King Cepheus, their beautiful daughter Andromeda, the sea monster Cetus, and the handsome Perseus. Note that Cassiopeia is easy to spot even with not perfectly dark skies. She's the key to finding this area, as the main stars of Cassiopeia, depending upon the time of night, form the shape of a W, an M, an E, or even a 3. These are the illustrations that go along with the stick figures. And don't they look really different from those stick figures? This wild story with a happy ending goes something like this. Queen Cassiopeia brags a lot about Andromeda being the best looking princess in the entire world. Well, Poseidon, the mythological sea god, and his nymphs complained that they were the most beautiful in the world. Well, finally, Poseidon had had enough listening to the sea nymphs and decided to punish Cassiopeia and Cepheus. He told them that he was going to send Cetus, the sea monster, to destroy their country unless they tied Andromeda to a rock by the sea, and Cetus would have her for lunch. Cetus was then sent from his deep place in the ocean. Unhappily, Cassiopeia tied Andromeda to a rock. Now, every good story needs a hero, and that's Perseus, a son of Zeus. He had been on a mission for his dad to remove the head of Medusa. She was the one that had snakes for hair, and if you looked into her eyes, you would turn into stone. Well, Perseus was really good at his job and did remove Medusa's head. He put the head in a backpack and was returning home to show his dad. In this version of the story, Perseus has winged feet to let him fly. If you happen to have seen either movie, Perseus is flying on the horse Pegasus, and movie directors can make a lot of changes. Well, as Perseus was passing by Cassiopeia and Cepheus' kingdom, he saw the beautiful Andromeda tied to a rock with Cetus, the sea monster, getting really close. Thinking quickly, he flew between Cetus, the sea monster, and the beautiful Andromeda while pulling Medusa's head out of the backpack. Perseus held the head so that Cetus looked at the eyes. Turning to stone and crashing into the sea, Andromeda was saved. Well, that's not quite the end of the story. Perseus and Andromeda fall in love and get married. This story has a happy ending. Also, now that we're here, the Earth, traveling at about 67,000 miles an hour around the sun, flies through what is left of comet tails. This creates what is called meteor showers. In August, the Earth will be passing through an area with a meteor shower called the Perseids. It's one of the best during the year. Meteors can be seen streaking across the sky, with most of the meteors arriving through the Perseus constellation. Moving to the southern night sky in July brings us to two of the dominant summer zodiac constellations that are part of the original 48. They are Scorpius the Scorpion, that has the shape of a J, and Sagittarius the Archer, holding a bow and arrow. They are near the horizon, but big on display. And again, we need to remember there are many different stories dealing with constellations. Sagittarius, shown here, is part man and part horse, called a centaur. The Muses, the goddesses of literature, science, and the arts, who Sagittarius lived with, asked Zeus to place him in the sky, where he is seen demonstrating archery. Scorpius the Scorpion has a very different story that involves Orion, the winter constellation we'll visit later. One mythological story goes like this. Orion boasted that he could defeat any animal on the earth, no matter how big or how strong. Mythological gods didn't like Orion's bragging. In one of many Greek stories, Gaia, the earth goddess and protector of animals, after hearing this, sent Scorpius, the scorpion, to sting Orion to teach him a lesson, which the scorpion did, and mortally wounding Orion. But unluckily for the scorpion, at the same time Orion crushes him with his club. Because of the position of Scorpius being a summer constellation and Orion being a winter constellation, they are never seen in the night sky together. It could be said that Scorpius is always chasing Orion but never catches him. Returning to the stick figures, Sagittarius has an asterism called the teapot. Remember that an asterism is a group of stars that sort of make a shape of something we recognize. In this case, it's a teapot, which has its own story and helps us find the location of a special object in our Milky Way galaxy. People of long ago wondered what caused the white area between the constellations of Sagittarius and Scorpius. The following made perfect sense with the help of a believable night sky storyteller. Using our imagination, it goes something like this. There is a teapot in the night sky that has water boiling, sending steam from the spout into the sky to create this white area. To listeners of that time, this was the, oh, that's how it works. Today, we call this the Milky Way, with a large concentration of stars looking toward the center of the galaxy, which leads us to the next piece of information. You can impress your friends by telling them how to find the massive black hole in the center of the galaxy, about 25,000 light years from here. To do this, find the teapot spout and look a bit to the right to find Sagittarius A, the black hole. Now we're going to take a look at the three constellations of Cygnus, Aquila, and Lyra that make up what is known as the summer triangle. It's the shape of a triangle, and of course, we call that an asterism. It was described by the Chinese over 2,600 years ago, then put into a star book in 1816, and finally popularized in the 1950s. This triangle was even used by the United States Air Force when flying at night, called the Navigator's Triangle, before electronic navigation became available. Using the teapot in Sagittarius as a guide, look up into the night sky using your imagination. You'll see stars that sort of make a plus sign. That's the constellation Cygnus the Swan, also called the Northern Cross. Zeus was known to have made himself into a swan, traveling about and flying in the night sky. The bright star Deneb at the tail of Cygnus places a point on the triangle. The constellation Aquila, the eagle, has the bright star Altair as another point of the triangle. In this mythological story, Zeus, after defeating the Titans, sent his eagle Aquila to Earth to kidnap a young boy by the name of Ganymede. That's also the name of the largest moon of Jupiter, bringing him back to Mount Olympus to be his servant. The third constellation is Lyra, having the shape of a small stringed musical instrument looking like a harp. The mythology has the music of the harp able to charm not only people and mythological gods, but also things like trees, rocks, and even water. The bright star Vega makes the third point of the triangle asterism. Now moving on to some of the best known winter constellations with the help of the three stars in Orion's belt. And remember, Orion is known as the Great Hunter. This area of the night sky is as seen in the month of January. Just for reference, Going back to the story of Scorpius, we need to remember that Gaia had Scorpius sting Orion so that they would never be seen at the same time in the night sky. What's also interesting is that the images of Orion's stick figure star group, as shown here, were drawn in a cave in Germany dating back almost 35,000 years ago. Along with the great hunter Orion, there are his two faithful hunting dogs, Canis Major, the big dog, and Canis Minor, the little dog. Greek mythology has Canis Major given to Orion to help hunt Lepus, the hare, which is a constellation, or to help fight Taurus, the constellation, which is the bull. Greek mythology has Zeus placing both Canis Major and Canis Minor in the night sky. And now we have Taurus the bull facing Orion the hunter. In the illustrations, we see that Orion is holding a lion cub as his shield while battling Taurus with his club. I don't think that the lion cub was happy about that. Well, Taurus paintings have been believed found in caves dating back almost 17,000 years ago. The constellation was once used to help determine when the spring equinox was near, and only the front of the bull is shown as the rest is submerged in seawater. Also, with these constellations is what is known as the winter triangle with 3 stars. One is Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, easily seen at night, and located in most illustrations as the nose of Canis Major, which is also called the dog star. Another star is Procyon, near the tail of Canis Minor. The third star is Betelgeuse, sometimes called the armpit of Orion or the armpit of the Great One. Betelgeuse is easy to see as it is reddish in color. It looks, of course, small in the night sky, but it's really at least 1,000 times bigger than our own sun. One last mention is the Pleiades star cluster. Even though not a constellation, it is very much associated with this group. Pleiades is also called the 7 sisters that Orion is always chasing but never gets near them. The Pleiades star cluster dates back to the time of Orion and Taurus, but has a modern twist. Lots of products are named after things in space. Everything from the Mars bar to the Milky Way candy bar. Well, Pleiades is an excellent example of this. It belongs to a car company in Japan. The CEO of this car company looked to space objects to name it. Being always so interested in Pleiades, he named the car company after the star cluster. You'll recognize the name because Pleiades in Japanese is pronounced Subaru. If you take a look at a Subaru car badge, you'll notice there are 6 stars because, well, there are 7 sisters, but 2 of the stars are so close together they appear as 1 star, but still named after Pleiades. There are still many more constellations in the night sky to explore. I hope that this introduction will inspire you to journey to the Mooresville Public Library to find all of the stories associated with the constellations, and not only that, but the stars that make up those wonderful sights in the night sky. And NASA has ties with the Moorhead Planetarium, Chapel Hill, UNC campus, North Carolina, that go back to the beginning of space flights with U.S. astronauts. From 1959 through 1975, every astronaut with the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Skylab, and Apollo-Soyuz programs were trained in celestial navigation at the planetarium. Of the 12 astronauts who walked on the moon, only 1 was not trained at the Moorhead Planetarium. Technicians even made replicas of flight modules made of plywood and cardboard for the training, with even parts of the Gemini capsule mounted on a baba chair, and how neat is that, to enable changes in pitch and yaw for the astronauts to practice. 2 examples of excellent preparation were on display when astronauts aboard Apollo 12 used their planetarium training after their Saturn V rocket was hit 2 times by lightning shortly after takeoff, causing spacecraft systems to go offline and requiring them to configure navigation systems to realign based on celestial fixes taken manually. And then even before that, Gordon Cooper, an astronaut on a Mercury mission in 1963, lost all navigation systems in orbit, and he used his training to make a most accurate manual landing. Neil Armstrong, the first person to step on something other than the Earth in our solar system, trained at the Moorhead Planetarium. He spent 20 days with 11 training sessions, more than any other astronaut. And he even returned before the 1969 launch of Apollo 11 to the moon. Astronauts considered the dome a highly realistic and the facility superb. Training stopped in 1975 as NASA finally developed reliable navigational computers. Well, I want to thank you for joining me for this part of the adventure.